Hey, Claude.
Hey, Claude.
How's it going?
It's going so good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I love the red behind you.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I'm up in my music room here. It's my jam space.
Sweet. I love it.
So cool. Well, we're thrilled to have you with us. I haven't seen you since when I was with Jonathan in the offices. I know you guys have talked a few times, but great to see you again.
You too. Where are you today?
I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I
Awesome.
I know we're lucky to have warm weather, but it's hitting 100 degrees early or this weekend. So we've had it so good up until this point, and now we're in for trouble.
All right. Well, it's great to see you again.
All right. So
Claude,
everyone, welcome back to our final session of the day. I'd love to welcome Claude Silver. Claude's the world's first ever Chief Heart Officer. I don't know if anyone's copied this title, but as far as we know, world's first Chief Heart Officer. After nearly 20 years at numerous advertising agencies, building brands for Fortune 500 companies, Claude actually joined VaynerMedia and then called it quits. Is that right?
It is
So,
right. I resigned.
so we're going to get into that story. She found her true home and calling at VaynerMedia, but left and then came back. So Claude, can you give us the background on how you ended up back in this role?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So I was initially hired by Gary to be the first SVP, and I was running big, very large brands, if you will. And that loud voice in my head just came booming forward like it had before, and I had suppressed it, which is advertising isn't for me, but I care about the people. I just literally want to make a home for people. That is what I care about. And so I went to Gary and I said, thank you so much. You're the greatest person in the entire world. This is the greatest agency I've ever been in, but I'm done with advertising. And in his wonderful way, he said, what is it that you're interested in doing? And I said, I only care about people. I care about the heartbeat of this place. So heartbeat. He said, great, I need you for 18 more months. And I said, I can give you 6. So 6 months came around and I didn't know what he had cooking and I resigned. It was it. I was really done. Like I was done. And 4 months later, he and I sat down for breakfast and he said, that's it. You're coming back. You're going to be Chief Heart Officer. And I knew what that was because it's who I am, right? And I said 2 things. Great, amazing. What are we doing here? And he said, we're building the greatest human organization of all time. Cool, sign me up. And I said, how do we know if I'm successful? And he said, you will touch every employee and infuse the agency with empathy. And that is my job description 4 years later.
Now, what did that mean to you when he said that? How do you even go about creating a strategic roadmap to infuse the agency with empathy by touching every person?
Well, the great thing, Jonathan, was that I had already been there for 16 months. So I had built up a lot of equity with people. I was already running a team of 50. So I knew the fabric of the culture already. I'm a real intuit and empath, so I can feel things really easily. But I had to think very quickly because the job was originally to scale him and then to scale me, right? Because I'm only one person. So instead of going to the micro and all of the stuff, the schmutz on the carpet, I decided to lift up to the macro and say, okay, I'm going to actually do what I was just told to do, which is I am going to meet with as many employees as I possibly can. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to hold space. I'm going to find out what's working, what's not working. And so I looked at the well rather than the faucet. And I concentrated on us as a logo, the macro, what does the quilt look like? And then as I started to meet more and more people, I started to understand, everyone's patch on the quilt, everyone's specific uniqueness that they bring in every single day. And so I have this really nice balance now of going up, going down, or as Gary calls it, clouds and dirt.
Totally. So as you set out to meet with everyone and understand what was going on, for some context for everyone that's listening, VaynerMedia is it almost 1,000 employees?
You're at 800.
800 employees. And so what was the timeline that you challenged yourself to talk to everyone over?
I didn't give myself a timeline. I really didn't, because I'll tell you why. In giving myself a timeline, I felt like either I would be rushed, and it just didn't seem like as someone that started in project management a zillion years ago, this wasn't a project to manage. This was going to be organic and getting to know people. But what I did do is I set up 15-minute meetings with everyone. And by the way, it took me almost 3 years to get to everybody. And that meant repetitively also, because my day is spent with individuals and with groups of people, it's also spent in operations meetings, in leadership meetings, in finance meetings, in resourcing meetings, and putting out fires everywhere. So it's a really nice, no day is the same. And I'm juggling a lot of different things on my plate. And I like that. It's a different way of multitasking because you can't really multitask with human beings.
I'm going to get specific because I know we've got a little while to talk, and I'm just so curious. When you sat down for a 15-minute meeting, did you have a formula, a format you were following? What were you trying to get out of each meeting?
Yeah, it's a great question because I did have a formula for some people, and I'll tell you what that was. It was, let's play Rose, Bud, Thorn. Rose, something that's going great. Bud, something you're looking forward to. And of course, the thorn is what I really want to hear, right? What's a challenge? What's really like, what's potentially making you a flight risk? These are the things I was listening for. And I used that with new people. I used that just like I would do what I now call a stay interview. You know how we all pay attention to exit interviews, which is phenomenal, but they're gone. They're out of the building. We now do stay interviews in my department. But I would look at that thorn as, what are they telling me? And what are they telling me that other people might think or what other people might feel? So that was a big one that I did, especially for new joiners, like in the first year. For other people, I would say, why don't you just tell me like something you're really proud of? And I would also say, paint me the ideal picture of your job. And then I would understand if the job that they're doing is different than the job that we thought they were doing. So I would ask I continue to ask a lot of open-ended questions. And the deal for me is being able to hold space in a non-judgmental way, because I actually want to hear the ugly. I want to hear what's not working, because we can fix that. There's nothing that we can't do except fix the crisis that we're in right now. But we can certainly navigate through that with transparency and authenticity. So the other thing I did was, when we moved to our Hudson Yards office, which we're in now, is I had an enormous whiteboard installed. And I do a lot of coaching on that whiteboard. And so for some people, I would do a values exercise. For some people, I would find out what their limiting beliefs were, what their imposter syndrome was. And they didn't even know what that was necessarily, but I would ask questions and probe so that I could find out what was holding them back from being their greatest self. What was holding them back from having that conversation with their manager? What was holding them back for asking for a promotion or a raise? What's holding them back from knocking on Gary's door? Those types of things. Because again, I think of my role in many, many ways is to listen to people, as I said, in a non-judgmental way, to literally hear what they're saying. And B, to then take action. Take action. They're coming to me for a reason, not just to be a receptacle, but they're coming to me because I'm in a senior position. I have Gary's ear, and there are things that we can do. We can create change easily, especially with someone like that at the helm.
Now, Claude, the last time I was at the agency, I was in your office and I saw you in action, like working kind of in the transition from our conversation into your next meeting, where it was obvious that there is a capacity in your job that is very much like therapist or guidance counselor in a way, right? You are giving that space to listen, to hear, non-judgmental, but like how can a manager get to that point where you can ask those questions, but how do you get to the point where the employee feels comfortable being so vulnerable and answering honestly, right? Like a manager can ask for vulnerability, but you might not get it. Like how do you get to it?
Well, I mean, you actually answered your question. A manager can ask for vulnerability if they are showing their vulnerability. I mean, like let's what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And what we know, and I think that this crisis is changing things, and we'll get to that, but what we know is, look, human beings are wired to connect. The bottom of Maslow's pyramid, and I'm sure you've talked about it today already, it's safety, shelter, security. The next one up is belonging. So the culture that VaynerMedia exists in is one of, I call, belonging and bravery. And that means we are wanting every single person to feel as though they can be themselves when they walk through the door, right? In order to do that, the managers, me, Gary, have to be as authentic as you possibly feel comfortable being. This is not going to be a culture where you're going to come in and shield yourself, because I'll tell you it's not going to work. But there are other places that does work in. So that's the first thing, the first part of your question, which is a great question, but the answer is literally, you have to show up in order to ask that other person to show up, right? So, and how do we do that? We do that with a lot of training. We do that with a lot of conversation around empathy and EQ, as you well know. That's what Gary's talking about all the time. What I'm talking about, simple acts of generosity, acts of kindness. We're talking about the ROI of kindness today. The biggest drum I beat every day, externally and internally, is why aren't we more human at work? Why are we not the same Claude that goes out for that brunch with her girlfriends on Sunday, or the same Claude that goes to the soccer tournament, or the same Claude that goes to the playground with my daughter? Like, what has happened to us to make us so shielded? Well, we were never asked to be our full self at work. This is a new revelation. So anyway, the real deal is we have to do a lot of training. We have to do a lot of conversations like this. We have to do a lot of listening and then rerouting. We have to sniff out where there might be bullies, because that's just not going to work here.
Yeah. So I know that Gary also has a policy where he does 5-minute kind of open door meetings, right? And so how would someone decide whether they go to you for something or they go to him for something? How does that dynamic work? Well,
we're two sides of the same coin. So you're going to get something very similar in our different vocabularies. But please walk to Gary's office first. I think it's so important to have time with him. He's not going to necessarily fix it on the spot if there's something going on, but he's certainly going to punt it over to me, or we're going to punt it to a senior leader, or we're going to punt it to whomever, someone on my team. But so I want to say, you come to either of us, but I encourage people to go to Gary all the time. And people are either really stoked on it, or they're like, well, what am I going to talk to him about? And it's like, don't worry about it. You will come out of that meeting flying for a good 30 days, because it's who he is.
I imagine there's some people that are just so excited to get in there, and there's others that put it off for years.
And I tell you what, when they put it off for years, and that's one of the questions I'll ask, which is, hey, have you gotten to see Gary? Or when was the last time you checked in with Gary? Oh, actually, I've been here 9 months and I never have. Cool. Then I'm writing his admins right now and saying, we got to get Chris in there in the next 3 weeks. Like, not urgent, but, so people are, it's really interesting. There's some people that start in their first week, they're like, I want to go see Gary. I'm like, okay, hold on. Actually a line, a big line, a big list, I should say. But
I'm sure he's a big draw for probably why people are wanting to work there, right? To just be around that energy.
It's a huge draw. You feel it when you walk through the halls. You feel our culture when you walk through the halls. And when he's there and he's present, it's a whole nother amplification of, energy and goodness.
So you have a few offices, right? Is still 4 offices?
No, let's see. We've got, VaynerX is our holding company. Mm-hmm. And VaynerX is at 800 people. VaynerMedia proper, the advertising agency, is about 625. But we've got 3 offices in New York. We've got an office in LA. We've got Chattanooga. We've got London. We've got Singapore. So I think that's about 6 right now. And now this is our office.
Now you've got 800 offices.
We've got 800 offices, which is amazing. And, you know, in a blink of an eye, we went from a non-work from home culture to a working from home culture, which is incredibly inspirational to see that people rallied very quickly.
So I'm curious, if you go back 2 months to when you had the 6 offices, how did you facilitate feedback and the relationships across all of those teams? Were you doing these kind of Zoom sessions with people, or how did that work before?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, we use the technology Zoom, Slack, Hangouts a lot. Mm-hmm. So jam sessions are something that I've been doing for a while, whether or not present or on virtually. There are other people on my team around all these geographies that will absolutely do the same types of things. It might be a little bit different because they have different personalities. About, I would say, a year in, maybe 18 months in, it was really obvious to me that who were the people in our company that had a very similar DNA to myself and Gary and a lot of the OGs. And I started calling them culture champions because I could lean on them to go talk to Jonathan when he might be having a bad day, or to go talk to Chris and those 13 other people that just joined 3 weeks ago and do a coffee round robin with them. You know, because the culture is, you're cultivating the culture. You've come into the office. You're part of us now. You know, every culture is everyone's responsibility. We do a lot of organic training and development. So we have been using Kim Scott's book for, I guess, almost 3 years now. And we Vaynerized radical candor, if you will, but we call it feedback training. And so we do that on repeat. We do manager 101 training, 102 training. And again, these are things that I do. These are things that other people on my team do. And these are things that other leaders can do, because it's not, you know, we have a deck and people can follow along. So that's, you know, one of the many ways that I scale, and that we also are able to touch so many people. Because again, that's the job. That's the job description.
So do you have actual culture champions that they've got a title, or they're in separate meetings, or how do you get on the culture squad?
Well, you raise your hand. That's the first way. Or I'm sitting with you and I'm like, hey, Chris, would you mind? Like, I love the way that you are. Would you mind if I had some new hires like meet you and you take them for coffee in the next 3 months? And you'd be like, Claude, I'd love to do that.
Yeah,
or,
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I love your vibe, Jonathan. Would you join one of the onboarding sessions with me? Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, who doesn't want to get picked for that? It's like getting picked for the all-star team.
Totally. Now, there's a question here from Terry that is curious if you have any kind of formal training as a coach, like as a leader in this capacity to run and operate all these training sessions for what it sounds like what you do on a consistent basis.
Does Claude Silver have training?
Does Claude Silver have training as a coach? Yeah.
Yes, and I actually trained as a psychotherapist about 1,001 years ago. So human behavior is something that I'm incredibly fascinated with. You know, starting with my own human behavior, and then doing a lot of coaching certifications when I lived back in San Francisco a long time ago, as well as you know, I mean, I'll just go there, like clairvoyancy training, past life regression training, chakra training. Like for me, I use a big grab bag when I go into life, because you never know kind of what tools you need or you're going to want to use. So in terms of the other question was, I think, the training in terms of doing manager training or facilitating. I don't have any training as a teacher or anything like that. But, you know, before I was a chief heart officer, I worked on the floor. I was one of these people. I speak fluent agency speak. You know what I mean? So I know and empathy, you know, I can empathize a lot with what people are doing on the floor that are strategists, project managers, client service people. I know where our deficits are, and I know where we want to get to. So with that, it's really pretty easy and common. I use common sense to know what we need. And of course, we use bespoke trainers to come in and really train some of the other stuff, like negotiating skills. I'm not the person.
Right. I love it seems like the foundation of business knowledge that you have makes the potency of your coaching and advice that much stronger. Whereas somebody that just comes in and is surface level is not going to have that same impact. So I think it's really important for leaders to embrace the people working with the people and make sure they have a seat at the leadership table, to be a part of the business so that carries through.
Yeah. I just want to echo that. If I hadn't been on the business side for so long, it would take me a lot longer to understand what it is, what my remit was and how to do it, how to get there.
Yeah.
So we talked about connecting the 6 offices, but let's transition into connecting the 800 offices now. How's that transition been for you? And I know even like yesterday we were on a call together for 10 or 15 minutes and your daughter, was in the mix showing a book. I was saying hi. And that's such a beautiful like aspect of what's going on right now. That's that silver lining is the authenticity of seeing the real Claude in your environment. Right. And so I'm curious how that pivot from being a non-work from home culture has been for you and the broader organization.
Yeah. So we were talking the other day and I think I mentioned the word triage. When all of this happened and went down, every company had to go directly into kind of triage and reactiveness and figuring out how to get our people safe, how to make sure that they have the right equipment, the right Wi-Fi speed, all that stuff, right? And we were plugging holes as fast as we could. And what do we do for working parents? And how do we let 800 people know that the 120 people that have parents are going to have to time out at certain times because they have to take breaks. So we did all that. We're definitely in much more of like a test and learn phase, I would say, as we transition down this road that we're all transitioning in. So I just want to give that kind of as a backbone of what I know we've all been doing, but I've kind of titled it a little bit for my own self, like triage, test and learn type of things. For me, I didn't actually think about what it was like for me because I was the front line of the triage of making sure that I was writing the handbooks and writing the guidelines and all of those things. But it wasn't until I noticed that, my partner has a job too, and we don't have any childcare. And, my daughter is 18 months and she needs a lot of attention and So there were so many gifts, obviously, in being home full time. And there's also the challenges that are amped up. They're amplified for me now. So I think that those were the things that kind of on a personal level were challenging for me. We're getting into a groove as we're 6 weeks in. For me, what I'm doing with these big jam sessions and making sure that I'm seeing multiple amounts of people, whether or not I'm seeing people in Singapore tonight at 9 p.m. New York time, so I can see them at 9 a.m. their time. Like, for me, making sure that people are feeling, again, that there's a community and they're connected and that they belong and they can still feel me, they can feel us. For the company at large, they have been so impressive. They have rallied in a way that has really surprised me in just a beautiful way, because I don't know. It's, they just did it. They just didn't. They didn't kick and scream. They just went for it. And so, we're a creative advertising agency. And so this is pretty phenomenal. Now, when you're a bunch of creatives and strategists and you're used to like jamming together in a room and putting stuff up on the wall, now you're jamming together and then you're going off and creating and coming back. It's a whole nother ball game. But the concepts and the executions and the creativity that I have seen come out of this agency in the midst of where we are today as a culture, all of us, is just overwhelmingly beautiful. I mean, today we just launched a new campaign for Temper, the mattress, and it's all about people using their beds as their offices. Like 6 weeks ago, I can tell you that's not what we were going to go live with. So that kind of like It's just
the battle against the standing desk.
Yeah, the battle against, right. And funny enough, I just saw my first request come in. We could send someone a standing desk at their home. That's my first request. So I have a feeling we'll get a good 20 more.
That's funny. So you mentioned before you weren't a remote company. I mean, you had a few offices, but the general opinion was not a remote culture, right? I've heard Gary speak about this before. He likes being around people and touch and feel and look over someone's shoulder and interact and collaborate. And I'm very much the same way. In fact, he had a video that I like tagged Jonathan in, and I'm like, yes, exactly, just like this. This is how I feel. And now fast forward,
because I've been saying to you forever that we need to be more, because I'm the like 100% remote one over here in Boston, right?
Right.
So how has your opinion changed, or has the company's opinion changed on the topic, and how will it impact the months to come?
The change is overwhelmingly positive. I mean, Gary himself is now saying he thinks he'll do Fridays from home and just do virtual meetings. He's getting so much done because if you imagine, this is a guy that's on a plane every day, pretty much. There's something. So let me back up for 1 second and say there is something incredible and incredibly vulnerable about the intimacy that this screen is providing us. I'm not in your space anymore, but you've invited me into your space in a different way. I'm now seeing your office, and I see your stuff on your walls and the basketball and whatnot. But imagine you're now seeing someone's bedroom, or you're seeing someone's closet because that's all they can, or you're seeing someone's kitchen table with the, people walking by. It's a very intimate invitation that we have been, quite frankly, forced into. And going back to this idea of empathy and kindness and what we believe in, the amount of, and vulnerability, the amount of just wherewithal and compassion that one needs to have entering into this type of environment is overwhelming because, quite frankly, we all have biases. Someone could have a bias about you sitting there with the basketball behind you. You're going to have you might have a bias as just a human being when you see someone on a kitchen table with, all of a sudden her husband walking by and you're like, I didn't even know she was married, like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So it brings up this other level of authenticity and trust. And it is something that I do really think that we've rallied around in such an incredible way. And we were forced into this. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple minutes ago, I like started, how do we bring out the real you on Zoom? Because there are so many people that, they're tucked away in a corner of a room that's quiet, and because they don't want to let real life in, because they're trying to stay focused and do their work. But it's really interesting to say, what is going on? And if it's okay to extend that invitation, I think we'd get to know each other a lot better.
I do too. And so that's one of the things that we do in these virtual meetings. And even on the teams, they're doing this. And because I've said, I really think you need to normalize the situation first before you go into, project management and you got to get this client to pay or whatever. Like that's all real. And that's right. Mm. But we also have to normalize, like, yeah, my daughter's going to be with me, Jonathan. I'm sorry. Here she is. I need to go eat lunch, or I'm eating my lunch. I hope you don't mind. I haven't been able to get away from we have to normalize this also with icebreakers. I call them icebreakers, but they could be whatever. Like, what did you watch on Netflix last night? Doesn't matter. I've been doing some of the ones I've been doing lately are your talk show host. Who are the first two people you have? And it's just quick fire. What's your karaoke song? If you could go back to any age in history, any period in history, what would it be? And it's literally rapid fire. And today someone said, I want to go back to the 70s because I want to see Led Zeppelin live. And I was like, yes, I'm going to use that one. But now I know that she's interested in Led Zeppelin and 70s music. And by the way, she wasn't even born in the 70s. Yeah. So these are this is good stuff.
On the other side of inviting somebody to be wholly themselves in this environment, right? Like I'm curious your perspective You said you're an intuitive empath. I feel like I'm the same way. And so much of communication happens non-verbally, especially when when you're drawing energy from others and you're together, like that communication is non-verbal. But in this environment, how do you pull, that connection through the screen in a way that you can when you're together?
I don't have the magic answer there, but I will tell you that I think eye contact goes a heck of a long way. And there's something about this connection, whereas I know you're looking right at me or you're looking at the screen. I know when, when I'm looking at my phone. I know when you're taking notes. I know when you're completely checked out. You know when I'm checked out. This has created a very different type of interaction with one another that I think is different than obviously when we're in person, because we can feel each other's vibe and I see your body language, all that stuff. But also when we're in person, we have a greater ability to look around and not make eye contact. When we're on the screen, and yes, I know our eyes are all getting like completely tired from Zooms, but there is something here where it's like, I know you're with me right now. I mean, I know that, and I'm with you. So again, I don't have the magic bullet, the secret sauce, but I do know that there is a trust that I believe is built here, and we're both in this together, and the ritual of a handshake is now gone. That will be gone for quite some time, I imagine. We have to create new rituals now, and that's interesting. And maybe that is the icebreaker, or maybe that is round robin. What did everyone watch for Netflix, or what is everyone making for dinner? I don't know what it is, but it's up to us, all of us human beings, but certainly as leaders, to provide our teams and our people with options. Absolutely. Because when we all go back, and that is going to be a whole nother piece of work.
Yeah.
When we go back to the office and stagger that and all of that, are we still going to elbow bump? I don't really know if people are even going to get that close for a while. Yeah, so what is it that we can do today that we can take forward with us as leaders? Maybe, and by the way, maybe it's every day at 12 o'clock, you and your team do wall sits for 5 minutes.
I'm just waiting for someone to come up with a computer monitor that has the camera in the middle, so you can actually like look in the camera and look at the person. Like, it'll be interesting to see what products emerge as a result of this. Like, I bet the blue light glasses are just like spiking.
Oh my gosh.
It's interesting. Chris and I's good friend, Aaron, he had wrote a post about like how the Jetsons, when they had their like video chat monitors, they didn't show themselves. There was no selfie view looking back, right? And that's a thing with FaceTime and with this now. You have a tendency to like gravitate towards looking at yourself, not directly at the other person. And like how that was a misstep in video communication.
Yeah. The Jetsons, I mean, they knew it. They, back to the 70s, right?
They knew it all back then. Led Zeppelin and the Jetsons. So, okay, so the topic here is the ROI of kindness. And we all know that kindness builds great organizations, builds great relationships. So today, especially when you're making decisions to send someone a standing desk or whatever, how do you navigate the desire to support the person with the company need to balance profits?
Yeah, well, today, the way I'm going to answer this question is probably a little bit different than I would have answered it 2 months ago, 3 months ago. We try to be as giving of a culture as we possibly can in all ways, shapes, and sizes. Right now, we really need to focus on the logo so that we all have jobs, and the employees. And that's a balance. We've always had to do that, right? But there was a time that I think we were almost employee first, then logo. And now I believe we need to just switch the scales just a little bit. And maybe it's 51% logo and 49% employee. It's slight. Mm-hmm. But right now we need all hands on deck to make sure that we are staying not only afloat, but that we're thriving in this period in time. And it's very difficult to do one-offs. right now. I'll be honest with you. We'll see what happens here. You know, a lot of times, I mean, just to be transparent, when someone asks for a standing desk, they have to bring in a doctor's note. Like, so, you know, no one can go to a doctor right now. So I don't know what to do. I'll have to solve that in a second. But the most important thing is that we can keep our people, and we can continue to run a tight ship, and we can continue to cultivate this culture 3.0.
How have you navigated some roles changing? Because I imagine that people have had to shift a little bit in terms of either the project they're working on or the job they're doing for the company.
Yeah, I mean, not only roles, we've let people go also. So that's a whole nother thing, and that's not unique to us in this day and age. In terms of the roles, I can't tell you that there's been a whole lot of shape shifting. I think that there are things that people are leaning into more than they were before, just because of the the reactiveness, and now proactively. For example, if you're on the client service team, proactively knocking on that client's door to figure out their new payment terms, because they might not be able to pay you net 90, net 120, you know, it might be like 360 now. So you might be negotiating more. You might be more in sales mode, getting incremental revenue and pitching more ideas if you're a creative. Like, for example, the temper ad that I was telling you about, that was pitched. It's all user-generated content, right? So I think people are just leaning into different parts of their brain, which means different parts of the job. And I don't necessarily think they're new jobs, new roles that have come about. I haven't seen any or heard of any yet. But it's really giving us as a company an opportunity to become that 3.0 that we want to become, a leaner company that is not bloated in any way, shape, or form, and that can really be out there with our cutting edge ideas and our beliefs. So, Gary's beliefs on what advertising and marketing really need to be. I mean, that is where we're going. I think you didn't ask me this question, but the advertising industry as a whole is changing as we speak. I mean, first and foremost, a lot of it's getting slashed.
Yeah. But
we're changing, and I think the way that we will greet our clients' briefs to us will be very different, and what we create for our clients, I think, will be much faster. I mean, if we all know that the majority of the human race right now is on TikTok, so that's 15 seconds. So you gotta be able to catch someone's attention in less than that.
And Jonathan and I are also on TikTok now as a result of Gary's incessant talking about it.
Great. Can't wait.
It's incredible the amount of creativity that's originating there right now. You see it across every platform, even on Instagram and on Facebook. Like the stuff that people are engaging with, even on our traditional platforms, are now reposted TikTok videos.
So
yeah.
creative.
And the memes. I mean, there's just so many of us we're having to laugh at this in many ways, because of the predicament and this amazing time that we're all experiencing together.
Yeah.
In one world,
So I have two kind of big follow-up questions, I guess. The first is, you mentioned this 3-year process of doing 15-minute meetings with everyone. And then all of a sudden it's like everyone's reality changes in a period of a week or a couple weeks. So how did you fast track check-ins with so many people to make sure that they were handling this okay, or to figure out the new quilt? Yeah.
I put something out on the global Slack channels and every office channel, which said set up time with me. That's exactly what I did. And I don't think you'd be surprised to know that how many people did set up time with me. And then what I did was, depending on if I knew that person, or when I asked, hey, this will be in 2 weeks or whatever, I found out by talking to them on Slack if I could actually just put them into a group chat. Because were they missing the connection? And that's different. or were they just needing some, some chief heart officer, which, by the way, isn't ooey gooey. It's also like, let me tell you what's really going on right now. We're really trying to, stay afloat and thrive. So, I give people the real deal.
Yeah.
Regarding you having the time to, whether it was in the office or now posting that message in Slack, to actually meet with everybody, there is a question here, which is good, by Mesa. How do you recharge and have the energy yourself to talk to everybody and be authentic and be sincere and actively listen?
Well, in the Gretchen Rubin test, I come out as an obliger. So, and I can send you that link that I took this personality test.
Please do.
I'm an obliger. So taking care of myself is something that I have really had to work on throughout my life, and I have to work on daily, which means taking time to meditate, taking time to do some yoga, if not stretching. Obviously, hanging out with my daughter is great and fulfilling, but exhausting. So cooking is really important to me. And I'll be making some tacos later. Something that is really interesting. Oh, thank you. Someone sent the quiz out. Something that's really come up that is bizarre, and I never would have thought about it because I never would have had this kind of time with her, is I'm now drawing. I'm literally, I'd love to, I'll take a picture and show you this. I'm looking up how to draw easy animals on YouTube. And there's an elephant, there's an owl, there's a cow that I drew today, but it's relaxing me. I would have used that part of my brain.
That's a great skill too, because if you've ever been at like a macaroni grill where you can write on the tables, like being able to pump out an owl or something is a great party trick. So.
Yeah, I want to be a popular mom, when this is all over. But it's a phenomenal question. And I told myself 4 weeks ago that I was going to at least try to meditate 3-4 times a week. And I use an app, and then do yoga 3-4 times a week. I use an app. I do some weights. I listen to a lot of music when I can by myself, and that might just be on a 15-minute walk. So, and it's something that I work on all the time. So thank you for the question.
Of course.
So another tough question, I guess. You mentioned, the reality of having to let people go. I know it's something a lot of businesses are facing, a lot of entrepreneurs I'm in mastermind groups with. I think of you as one of the most empathetic and people first kind of leaders. And so when you have to approach something as difficult as that, how do you do it? What's the conversation like?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you first and foremost. The conversation, I go into that conversation with as much grace and generosity of spirit as I possibly can, recognizing that I'm going to change someone's life right now. And it's not great. It's not a great time. So that's the first thing, that's what I do for myself. Mm-hmm. And then what I say is, Sammy, I'm really sorry that this is going to be a difficult conversation. Or Sammy, and we don't have a Sammy, so that's what I'm using. Sammy, I'm really, really sorry to say this is going to be your last day. Or Sammy, as you know, we've been restructuring the creative department now for 5 months, and we would have had this conversation 6 weeks ago, and then COVID hit. And so we're having it now. I know it's really, really uncomfortable. So those types of things. Mm-hmm. What I'm able to do on the end of that is offer up our networks, the ecosystem that Gary has created. We have something called an Alumni Network, alumni program, which is not as robust as it normally is, but what that is, all different kinds of CMOs and whomever send in to Gary or us like, hey, I'm at Campbell's Soup and I'm looking for a project manager. Hey, I'm at so forth and so on. I'm looking for a social media manager. And that's a wonderful opportunity for me to then say, Sammy, I know you are really interested in moving to Chicago and there happens to be a role here. Let me introduce you. I can't promise you anything. Let me introduce you. And that's really that's what I can do. Mm. Let's go for it. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I've always loved hearing, from you and from Gary, how much emphasis you put on helping in the next step, right? It's not just, this is the end of your road here, But even what Gary did for you when you were resigning, and he's like, what do you care about? Right. And then all of a sudden, here's this role happened to still be at Vayner. But
Yeah.
I love the emphasis you put on providing guidance to get where they want to really go.
Yeah. And thanks, Jonathan. The way I know what Sammy is interested in is because I've spent a lot of time with Sammy. That's the thing. The fictitious people I'm telling you about, I've spent time with them, or their manager tells me, this person has always wanted to work at Netflix. Do we know anyone at Netflix? That kind of stuff. So, and you only get that by engaging in conversation with someone.
Right. Okay. So, we'll transition from that, such a hard topic, to a more positive note, which is ROI. So all of this conversation about, caring for people and investing in people and asking the right questions and coaching. And, this is all leading to producing a better culture and a better company. And there is a return on that. Right. So, when we prepared this topic, I think it was prior to this, but I still think it's a really important thing to cover, because every decision that we're making today has some sort of ROI, and you've got to make the decision on, do we do this today as a result of how it's going to impact the company in the months to come? And so how do you think about ROI, or what are some examples of how you've invested with a great return?
So letting people go. It's actually a really, really good place to start, because we just came from there. When you're able to help someone on the flip, think of that ROI right there. They're going to stay in your network. We want to keep people in this ecosystem, because that person that we just helped place over there will one day be the CMO over here. Will one day work at Bazooka Gum, and we can buy Bazooka Gum and market it the way we want. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing is, and that's just karma. I mean, that's kindness, karma. It's playing by the golden rule, which is how I live my life. And I think it's incredibly important, which is you just want to take care of people the best you can. And yes, that does mean that we're going to let people go. That does mean that some days are not going to be as sunshiny as the other days. But we really want people to know, like, we care about them. We want the people that are at our company right now, we want them to be there for 10 years. I'm already seeing who's going to sit in this seat whenever that day comes. And I've seen that already, 3 different times. There's 3 different people I can tell you that would be great to sit in this seat. So that, I think, is a way that ROI comes to life, because they're just being themselves. And I think to myself, holy cow, you can do this with your eyes closed. Like, you are exactly what the future needs. So anyway, I meandered a little bit, but the letting go, I think, we can't say enough about caring for people, especially today, and what the karma is on that. I think that when you spend time with people, that comes back to you tenfold. And by the way, I don't spend time with people, or Gary doesn't spend time with people to even have it come back tenfold. But that is energy, and that energy I can use to help other people out. It's an interesting question. What's the ROI of kindness? Because I think, well, what isn't the ROI?
Someone asked a question in an earlier session that was, how do you convince leadership or management or the CEO to make investments by proving there's some sort of ROI? So I think, you're fortunate to have the relationship you do with Gary, but at companies where there's not as much receptiveness, is there something you'd recommend for people?
Yeah, I actually get this question a lot, because I work in somewhat of a utopia. I understand that in terms of my relationship with Gary, and also who he is as a CEO, and very much an HR-led, HR-driven CEO. The answer that I always give is, first and foremost, don't change who you are. If you are the next CHO, or if you are a giver, or you're a natural coach, or you're a natural whatever it is, keep being you, play to your strengths, because there are others like you that you will find one another, and you will create your own groundswell and your own culture change. It might start off small. Guess what? So did rock music. It started off small, came from the blues. I was trying to go Led Zeppelin, but I couldn't. But so did the pop movement. Andy Warhol didn't just like start one day and do the Campbell soup cans. It was a movement. And so these culture change, these changes, you get people together and you get groups together and you rally, and soon enough it will be noticed. And whether or not you have a CEO that wants to lean in hard on that or not, someone in senior management will. Just know it. And the world is changing as we are speaking. You can open up any HBR article right now. This is a phenomenal cast that you've had today, that we're all speaking of. We're all in the same red thread, aren't we? We're all talking about kindness, humanity, giving back, empathy. We're all talking about this.
Yeah, it's inspiring. And I know people have been commenting all day on how do I infuse a little bit of this into my organization. And so I guess if they don't feel like it's there, you can either create it or you can find an organization where it exists, right?
Yeah. And yes. And organizations, we are going to see new things sprout up as we emerge out of this epidemic. We will see new companies sprout up. We will see new types of leaders sprout up. I think that we will see a rise, and I hope, and I do believe that we will see a rise in servant leadership and more empathetic leadership, understanding that we don't, leadership from a top down in an ivory tower, it's just not going to work. Look, more and more millennials are going to move. I think it was in the New York Times yesterday. More and more millennials are going to move out of cities right now and into places where it's more affordable and they can probably work from home. So, the talent, and I think it was the last person you had here from Uber was talking about like the enormous amount of talent that is going to be available and accessible to us is outrageous. So it's just an amazing, incredible time that I don't think your topic could have been more timely than today.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Jonathan, anything else you want to chime in with before we start taking questions? Because they're flowing like faster than
I know. They're coming in real fast. It's been so on point. I know that we had one question from Lo on our team who would have wanted to ask you how to infuse or how to shift a culture's an organization's culture that doesn't necessarily have empathy with a culture of empathy. And I think we just hit on that, right? It's like, now is a catalyst moment as long as you have the intentionality to do it. And like you said at the beginning, you have those culture champions that you can lean on and you empower them, right?
Yeah. And remember that if you're invited into a room, like you're there for a reason. Use your voice. Like you are there. And that is something I tell a lot of younger folks, especially young females. Like, we are not there to take notes. You're not there to be a wallflower. You're there to add something. Yeah. You're there. So be an addition. Don't be a subtraction.
Yeah. Love that. I couldn't be more passionate about I know the ROI of kindness it was kind of meant to quantify empathy, right? In a way that gives a return to a company. But at the same time, like in advertising, in branding, in marketing, in my world, like not every brand activity has a direct ROI. But like you still have to do it if you want to build your brand and infuse your personality and your mission into the market, right? And the return on that is more long tail, hard to quantify immediately, but you do it.
Yeah, you might not see a sales lift today, but you will see a brand affinity and brand loyalty tomorrow. That sounds like a fortune cookie.
Another T-shirt. We've been collecting phrases all day.
Let's go.
Okay, so we've got a question here. You mentioned earlier on the stay interview, which I love. We do a welcome interview instead of an exit interview on why somebody picked us, and and try to understand that. But the stay interview, what do you cover in that interview?
It's actually pretty basic. So it's 45 days in, and then we do another one. What is it? at the 6-month review, the 6-month review mark. The 45-day interview is very, very basic. It is, you're going to love this. Have you met your manager? Has your manager gone over goals, roles, and responsibilities? And have you written down your own personal goals? And this is something we just started. So it's literally, we want to know, like, have you met your manager? It's more than, yes, you've met your manager and you know where you sit, but have you gone into anything? And has someone explained to you what it is that you're required to do? You know, because at the end of the day, like, you will be reviewed on X, Y, and Z. So if you think you're supposed to do A, B, and F, you're completely going to miss the mark. And then that's just a bummer. And then we go into the whole, like, subjectivity of feedback and all of that stuff. So, so that's what and we just started this. I tell you, like, literally we started this in December.
Wow.
It was just at a point where it's like, if I see another exit interview that I just didn't get to that person, I was like, if I only got to that person in time or whatever.
And was the biggest risk somebody a month and a half in that just never got connected with the team?
Yeah. And especially in one particular department, I would say 2 departments, but one particular where we're bringing people straight out of college or university in. They're coming from a very specific culture, a lot of competition, and a lot of, like, perfectionism. So one of the things that it's okay. I can't change anyone if they have a perfectionism plight. That's their thing. But we want people to know what the target is, because it's not fair for us to move a target on them and then all of a sudden deem them a poor performer, and then that's a whole nother slippery slope. So that's what we do in that, and it's literally 3 questions, and it's really helpful. The other thing that actually Greenhouse can do, and that's our applicant tracking system, is every Sunday it sends me a report of candidates survey that Greenhouse sent out to candidates, so I can see how we've done as interviewers. And certainly in this day and age when we're interviewing this way is very different.
Yeah, I bet. So you mentioned performance. Someone asked, let's see, Adrian says, how would you recommend one approach an employee who is not engaged during this time and has been underperforming?
I would 1,000% try to figure out how to ask them what's going on at home. 1,001%. Because what dawns on me there is, are they not engaged because they are living with 5 people? Are they not engaged because they pay rent for their mom and they're, afraid they're going to get whatever it is? So is there something personal going on that they feel that they can share with you? And if not, I'd get someone for us people, an experienced team or HR to ask them. And then I would just ask them, like, is this just a forum? Like, I would find ways to ask questions that don't put any kind of blame or shame on them to see, like, what is it that's not connecting? So, let's be honest. If you have any kind of unseen disability that would prevent this flow, that's going to be a problem. So what can we do in that case? It's just like, giving Grammarly to people like myself that are dyslexic. Like, we just need to be able to do that. So then you're not judging me on my spelling. So these are things I would really just kind of knock on the door and ask them if it's okay if you ask them some questions about their working from home situation.
Yeah. So I know sometimes it can be challenging to open that door. You don't want to pry. So is it just as simple as, is everything okay at home?
Yeah. I mean, I think is everything okay at home? I think it's, do you have a setup where you can work comfortably? Do you have enough Wi-Fi maybe? How's it been working from home? Do you feel like you can get all your tasks done on time? Those types of things that are a little bit more prescriptive than how's it going at home? Because I'm going to tell you right now, hey, I mean, it's great at home, Chris. I get to watch Netflix every night, which is not true for me. But yeah, it's like, no, I'm not looking for that answer.
Yeah.
Or let's be really honest. And this goes back to one of the questions Jonathan asked early. Hey, Chris, how is it going working from home? I know that I'm really challenged looking at a screen 8 hours a day. Like, what's going on for you? Like, get vulnerable, get real.
Mm.
You set the example.
So we have a question here from Weston, and I was just thinking about this around how you structure your department, right? You were saying if they need to talk to you or if it's somebody else in HR, like how is your department structured? Because throwing it all the way back to where you said the mission was to first scale Gary and then scale you, like how are you structured? And two, how do you go about scaling an individual? What's that like?
Okay. So when I came into this role, we had like 3 people in HR, and I say quotes because I don't really use HR. And when I accepted the role from Gary, I said, I'm not HR, right? He's like, yeah. You're going to hire a strong team around you, which we have. It took some time, but I immediately changed the name of the department to People and Experience, because again, common sense is what really kind of like guides me a lot. And we are dealing with people, human beings, and their experience in our world, from the minute they send their resume in to their last breath and so forth, and all that yummy stuff in between. And then I got help actually in structuring the department, because remember, I had never done this. I was always told I was an HR person's dream, which was kind of not cool, because how did they know? How did they know? Right? I actually needed Grammarly. No one gave it to me, but that's a whole other story.
Everyone should have Grammarly.
Yeah. I mean, I should actually just like do an ad for Grammarly right now, but I consulted people in this world outside of the company in terms of what I needed to build. I did not know that they were called HR strategists or HR business partners. I didn't know anything. So I consulted some friends that I had been meeting in the world, and they helped me figure out the types of people I needed. So I knew I needed people that could, do compliance and benefits, but I didn't want to be a no people and experience team. I wanted to be a yes, and we are built on possibility, and Gary's an entrepreneur, so I want to be a yes and not a no. So I needed to find the people I needed, but the people I needed with the right type of the vibe and the texture that I knew could then scale me. And that's going back to the next question, which is, how do people scale me, or how do people scale Gary? I think I'm able to, and I don't mean this as a humble brag at all. I mean, Gary chose me for this role because I think he saw that he and I have a very similar belief in human beings, and we are optimists. For me, I need to make sure that those folks that are scaling me have a similar belief. I don't expect them to be identical at all, but that their values are in a very similar zip code as mine. And I want to be able to trust them that they will go talk to Johnny and Sue and Sarah with that same type of care that I would. Mm. And so that oftentimes is that first line that someone on the creative team will go talk to their business partner.
I love that. Aaron just chimed in and said, finding people who can scale you. Love that concept. And I think it's true for every role in a company. Every leader should be looking for ways to support themselves, to build capacity, to make everything function better. So I like how you approach that. We've got another question. Innovative Human Capital Team says, our culture was built on in-person connection. We didn't have a work from home policy prior to this. As a leader of our people operations, I'm struggling to adjust to this new way of working because I'm too motivated by human connection. So what suggestions do you have to continue a thriving culture with now a different situation?
Yeah. Does that person have a name?
It says Innovative Human Capital Team. So this must be a...
If you have a name, drop it in the chat.
Because I literally relate to you in such a massive way. I have never really seen myself as like a massive extrovert. In fact, I think of like I'm an ambivert. But week 1, finishing week one of working from home, Gary and I spoke on a Saturday, and he's been calling me on Saturdays when we have a second to breathe. How's it going for you? And I was like, Gary, I am struggling. I'm like, I am so missing the energy I get from people in the hallways. He's like, I am too. It's like, what do I do? He's like, you just need to have these jam sessions. It's like, oh. So I call them 12 at 12. I do at 12 o'clock East Coast time. I sent, first of all, I started with people that had been at the company for only 18 months, and I started inviting them in. I thought I would just get 12 people at 12 o'clock, and we would spend like 12 to 15 minutes together. I'm still calling it 12 at 12, but I get about 25 people now. And we do the check-ins. We ask how people are doing, what's going on, what's not working, how's it been, so forth and so on. And that's when I do these icebreakers. And that's how I started this whole thing, which then I shared out to senior leads to take bits and pieces of normalizing a situation. But I start every single 12 at 12, and sometimes they're not at 12 now, with, hey, thank you all for being here. I want you to know, like, this is purely selfish. Like, I missed you. I missed being with you. I miss seeing you in the hallways. I miss going to your offices. I traveled a lot, which will be very different now. I miss jamming with you. I missed your laughter. I missed the kitchen. And so I started this because it's completely selfish. And then we go in and we talk. And then I end up by saying, like, hey, if anyone wants to chat one-on-one, hit me up. If not, I just want to thank you because I really needed this. And that's the truth. And then today, 2 people wrote me that I don't even pass often in the hallway. Thank you so much. I needed that. So the no name person, that's what my suggestion is. Use what you have to your advantage.
Yeah.
And so I said I started with I got a list of all the people that had been there for 18 months. And then I threw it out on the New York Slack channel. Tonight I'll do Singapore, like I was saying. And really, you really want to have like 15 people or less, because you want people to engage. And this is not an all day thing. It's 20 minutes.
Yeah. That's a great suggestion. It's funny. We have 2 people on our people team, and our head of people is her name's Sasha, actually, which is a common word around your offices. And she's the same way. Every time I post something, she's like, "I'm crying. I miss everybody so much. Where are my people?" So,
yeah.
Have you,
Chris or Jonathan? I just want to say one thing. Notice the way I start that conversation, which is vulnerable. This is for me, which, by the way, I know it's for them too. But this is for me. And thank you for taking time out of your day to really fill me, So I just wanted to stop there, because it's really back to the question, because the question was, what do? I miss human connection. I miss it too. This isolation is grotesquely hard for me in many ways. And I use that word, in a big way. So it's like, look, I'm right with you, man. I need this just as much as you. It is hard. Or I get in the parenting group and I'm like, this is freaking hard. So I normalize myself as much as I can, which is a lot.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, in one of the things that we've been doing that's been really fun in our all team meetings, because we're up over 30 people now. So when we do connect, Zoom has like this breakout feature that you just hit the breakout room and it just shoots, it splits the whole, whoever's on, like your 20 or 30 or 100 people into like these sub rooms that are 5, 6 people that can actually just connect for a timed amount. And it just gives them, 5 minutes to chat together. It's really fun.
I'm going to do that. I'm literally going to just like spur it on them. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
We did the same thing. It was a brand new feature, and I just hit the button one day and everyone was thrown into these rooms. So it's really cool. If you're using Zoom, check out breakout rooms. All right. Holly says, we've always been a remote team from all over the world, which has created very siloed teams. How do you bring the different cliques together easily with diverse remote teams? So many from so many different cultures.
Yeah. I wish I had a different answer for you, but I literally do what I just tell you, the 12 at 12s. And if I had to force the attendees, I would tell you that. If I was like, oh gosh, people from London aren't joining, don't think I wouldn't add them, because I would. But right now I don't have to do that. But I am literally, just taking people from different cultures and subcultures. I mean, the funniest thing happened the other day, and I saw Corey Williams on the chat. So I love you. Thank you for being here. And you'll relate to this. The other day it was Gary's chief of staff's birthday, Marcus. He's been at the company. I think he was employee 1, 2, or 3. And I don't look at who's coming into the invite. I don't look at who's coming in until I start accepting people on Zoom. And it was all OGs. Every single person had been there 8 years or more. And they all came on because it was Marcus's birthday. And we had just the most amazing, it was their party, by the way. If anything, I was more of the outsider because I wasn't there 8 years ago, only 6 years. So that's a subculture. They all organized and they, got on the Zoom together. Yesterday, the entire Mondelez team, media team, got on the Zoom together. So they're doing these things, whether or not it's together in these small little, cliques or micro or in macro. But I say, if you have to force a little of it, it's to everyone's advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, we use this Slack plugin called Donut. I don't know if anybody that's listening has tried that before, but it pairs you with someone random every week so you can have a little chat. And that's another great way to encourage cross-team collaboration.
Yeah, it's a great tool.
Claude, I'm curious how you measure the success of what you do. What are the KPIs of your department? How do you measure accountability of your actions?
So what I would probably normally tell you is one of the greatest ways I can measure ROI is retention and low attrition numbers. That and word of mouth recruiting. That is an enormous way for me to know what the culture is doing and why people are staying. We're in a slightly different day and age right now where we're not hiring. So that's one way that it's very difficult for me to tell. One of the other ways, so we occasionally do pulse surveys. And then the other thing, and this is not quantifiable at all, is how busy I am. I mean, it's quantifiable because you can see my calendar, but literally I can get such a sense of how people are doing by spending a little bit of time with them and asking the right questions and intuiting and listening, and then knowing what I need to do with that person. Mm-hmm. So, Jonathan, you're a musician. I have 3 people immediately that I'm going to introduce you to that you've never met virtually, because you've got a breakout jam room. And like Brian Chin, who's a creative director, not only plays drums every day, he's on TikTok every day playing drums. And I think you guys would jam, those types of things. And again, it's not necessarily quantifiable, but so much of what we do is qual. It's so qual. I mean, Gary is so qual. I'm so qual. So those are big ways. I mean, I think there's a happiness factor that I really go for.
Do you measure employee net promoter score or anything like that?
Nope. We're just implementing a new tool, performance management, our first ever performance management tool called Hi Bob. We're in implementation stages right now, and that will allow us to do all kinds of markers and surveys and all that stuff. But we have been so old school.
Old school relationship building. I mean, you can't knock that. No, the tech's just going to help. Let's see. Janeth asked, what are the main points or themes or questions you ask on the 12 at 12? Is it just a conversation just for fun, or is there an agenda?
So remember when I was mentioning the rosebud thorn in the beginning? So the agenda is always the thorn. They don't know that. The agenda in the 12 at 12 is to hear if people aren't doing well. What's troubling them? Is it that they can't have a break? Is it that, so the first 3 weeks, what was troubling people, and I saw this also on Slack rooms, was they felt like they had to be attached to their screen and their phone 24/7. because like, what else are you doing, right? You're at home, you have nothing else to do. Well, that's wrong. We have lives to live. And so I sent out, because every week I send out a, hey, it's week 6, working from home, so forth and so on. So week 3 was, I said the working hours, that we work from 9 to 6. And then I said, for working parents, just let your manager know that you're going to time out at 9 a.m., at noon, and whatever else. I expect people to step away from their computers multiple times a day. Just tonight, the email that we're going to send out globally is, it's called Be Still. It's a meditation company that is offering us 15 minutes of free meditation a day for every single person.
Oh,
so,
wow. That's awesome.
I'm just like, putting that out on Slack constantly. So many people have raised their hands to do, someone does planks at 3:00, 15 minutes of planks virtually. This is what the culture has done by themselves, but they do it because they know they have tons of permission to do it. There's so much runway with what is possible for cultures.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So much of the conversation right now is just about being there for people and listening and making sure everyone's all right and navigating these uncertain times. How do you handle people development? So recommending growth areas for people I'm sure that's part of your coaching. And is it something that you've been doing lately?
Yeah, so a couple answers there. One, we're doing management training again. We started last week. So we're doing 3 sessions a week, and we're also doing that in Singapore. And I keep mentioning Singapore because I don't ever want to forget that they're there, and I don't want them to ever feel like they're not there. And that's manager training 101. And then we have a leadership training that will start for directors and above soon. We work with a coaching company called Guided, and it's coaching as benefit. The employee pays, an 1/8, and we pay the rest, and anyone could sign up for professional life coaching. So that's something that it's anonymous. All I know is who's doing it because I can see just based on benefits. If I wanted, I don't need to know anything about it. It's not my business.
Yeah.
That's really providing an employee with real, like, tangible, like, facilitation, guidance, those types of things. And we're doing virtual presentation skills training. So how to present to a client on this, where again, very difficult to read a client's language, especially if you're sharing your screen.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
So we're, the thing about Vayner that I love, and the thing about Vayner that we're also moving out of, is that we will always be hackers to an extent. We will. So, like I say, we have been old school for a long time. We're just implementing Hi Bob, which is going to change us in a way. I'm proud that we're hackers. I've worked at a lot of those other agencies that are very prescriptive, and for me, this works. Yeah, right on. Headspace is offering free meditation, so right on to Christy who mentioned that.
All right, cool. Check that out. I love Headspace. I did that this morning, so I think it's a good practice. All right. Any other questions? Please hit us up in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll keep it going with a few more minutes with Claude.
I would love to know how you're approaching the outdoors right now, because I know you have a background, as we've talked about, in Outward Bound, and
Yes.
so I'm curious how you're dealing with that.
Love that question. Wish I had a really great answer for you. But right now, what I'm doing when it's not raining here is I take my daughter to this like remote playground and we run around. That is literally it. I mean, I'm on a lake, so as soon as it gets warm enough, we'll take the kayaks out and the stand-up paddle boards, and taking walks. I mean, I do take walks, and it's really, I'm in a very remote place, so I'm blessed to be here and not in the city. And like I say, like I am breathing fresh air, and there's, a lake that I wakeboard on in the summertime. But nothing too juicy, unless you think, pushing your kid on the swing is great, which
That's
I do.
beautiful.
It's
But
great.
with the company, normally with the company full-time in Hudson Yards, being in the heart of the city, like how do you approach fostering an environment where people can get outside out of the city? Like do you promote that at all within the organization?
Well, I'll tell you what, we will be now. We haven't promoted necessarily getting out of the city, but we're partners with ClassPass. So, we try to offer our people things that at least will get them their body, mind, spirit doing something. It's up to them if they want to do that. But there's nothing that we have done as of late, to like get everyone out and skiing together. It's a lot of us. There's a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm jealous that you've got swings. Our swings are all taped off with caution tape near our house.
That's because I'm in the boonies of the Poconos and there is no one else around. I think there's rust on the swings. So I'm awfully good.
That's funny. Jonathan and I used to go to the Poconos on vacation when we were kids.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Loved it there. Loved it. That was like the highlight of our summers, was to go ride quads in our uncle's, forest in his backyard.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm in Lake Harmony.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
All right, we've got someone, anonymous said, how often are you measuring employee engagement? What's the best way to measure engagement during this time?
Again, we don't have, there's nothing that I've done that is like quantifiable right now. I think we will end up sending some surveys out, but as we've moved from like this triage and then and seeing people's responses and seeing the emails that get sent to me or sent to Gary about, the thank you for the transparency and whatnot, into this kind of test and learn. We'll end up doing that. We'll definitely end up sending a survey. One of the things that I did yesterday is I spent a lot of my day with the different ERGs, employee resource groups. So whether or not groups for people that consider themselves people of color. And so I spent time with each group talking to them about what they see, what they feel, whether or not, the people that left the company, were they, did they feel like there were minorities in there? Did they want to see more minorities and more diversity in senior leadership, all that stuff. So it's still very much hands-on right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that we are moving to. And I definitely think Hi Bob's going to help us. So,
but with 8 or 6, 8.
I do talk to them all.
Yeah. So with the offices everywhere and 800 people, and to not have got to that point yet, right? Like, do you have something about people should maybe stop caring so much about measuring everything? Because everybody's asking about quantifying, right? Quantifying results that we can track and measure. Should you stop caring about the data when it comes to people?
I'm not going to say they should or they shouldn't. I'm a people person. I get a lot I pick up on a lot of stuff. Gary does as well. I think there is a lot of truth to data, but I think that there's a lot of gray and you need context. And how are you going to get context? Not in an Excel spreadsheet. So if you marry the two, then phenomenal, but you have to have both. You do have to have both, So, we do reviews and all of that. We score people, and I don't even like that I just said that. I hate that, actually.
Right.
I hate often, but reviews are subjective, and I don't know.
What is your review process like?
Well, the review process has been twice a year, biannual, where it's peer review, and we review people based on what we call the honey and empire. So a lot of the communication EQ skills we are actually reviewing people on. So how well they communicate and all of that stuff. And then the empire is whatever the business is of their job. So if you're a seller, are you bringing in incremental revenue? If you're a creative, have you done some big blue sky thinking, those types of things. And reviews are really tough and they're interdepartmental. So I'm asking about Jonathan, not only from your managers, your line managers, but people you work with every day, and even senior leadership. So reviews are tough. They're really tough for me to swallow. I find that there are oftentimes people will use them as the one and only time to give someone criticism. And it's just mean. It's like, well, you had all year to just tell Johnny that, you'd like him to prepare more before he goes and pitches a client. You don't have to just save that for, April.
Do you think, this is a question from Eliza, do you think that we should be delaying those kind of reviews, performance reviews right now when it's such a concerning time psychologically?
So we do them in April and October, which means we start the review process in the beginning of March. So we are sitting on 200 people who are ready for their review right now. And just today, we've made the decision that we were going to go ahead and do them virtually. Obviously, we want to be in person with people, but we don't know when that's going to happen. So we just rolled that out today. So we're going to give people reviews, and I don't go through people's reviews unless I need to or I'm curious. But in this case, I'm really going to just kind of like double click into a lot of the reviews to just see if, it's a tricky time right now. So I don't want to coddle anyone, but I also want to be very careful on what we're saying. Yeah,
it makes sense. Well, I think, such a big theme of this has been listening, the just scheduling these things, and whether you've got a formal software like Hi Bob, I think you said, or we use one called Culture Amp. We used to use another one called Office Vibe. There's a lot of tools. So whatever the tool you use is, whether it's just filling your calendar with meetings or doing it in some software, collecting the feedback and making your team feel like you're vulnerable enough for them to be vulnerable, I think is such an important takeaway that I got from this. So I love this conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here, and next time in Scottsdale.
Yes,
absolutely.
Come visit.
Thanks,
everyone. Claude, thank you.
April, thank you so much for being here too.
Thank you again for joining. We also, again, want to thank our partners at Empathy Wines, all of our incredible panelists. This came together. Couldn't have imagined it coming together better. So Training with Empathy could not have happened without you. Thank you for being a part of this, and have a great night, and enjoy whatever silver lining is in your world with this time that we're going through.